guys, I'm here for another reaction episode to the NFL playoffs this past weekend. Pretty cool week in terms of excitement and games and stuff, so I'm going to jump right into it so I have enough time to talk about everything. Excuse me. So, starting off the Titans versus Chiefs game, honestly, I went into this game, I was talking to my dad in the car ride to school, I said, this game is going to come down to whether the Derrick Henry can do enough against the Chiefs defense to still run like crazy like he has the past few weeks. And ultimately the Chiefs defense stepped up. Derrick Henry wasn't able to run the same way he usually runs, and that led to them needing to pass more, and that's not good for the Tennessee Titans. If Derrick Henry could run for 150 plus yards a game, the Titans are fine. They're going to win basically any game they play that way. But as soon as a defense steps up and prevents Henry from running all over them, it's over. A big issue for the defense, for the run game of the Titans, is that they need help to empty the box for Henry. Every single lineup is a full-on attack to stop Henry. A great example of this was, I believe it was 3rd and inches, 4th and inches, something like that, late in the game, where the Chiefs defense on their own 40-yard line sent out a goal line defense against Henry because they knew for a fact there was no chance that the play call would be anything other than Henry right up the gut. And that's too predictable. I know that the Titans, one thing they do a great job with is trick plays, smart plays to set things up and all that. That was made obvious in this game when they threw to their offensive lineman for a touchdown for the fattest player to ever score in the playoffs. They need to the trick plays are great. I think they need to use that brain they're using for trick plays to also come up with better, I call it scripting, game management, where you open up the box for Henry, whether that comes with checkdowns or something like that, because Tannehill, I still think, can be the franchise quarterback for this team. Or at least he's good enough. I think that they have the offensive weapons to get it done. I think that Davis needs to prove a little more to be an alpha, but I think that A.J. Brown has stepped up as that alpha, and I think Davis can play in that wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1B role with A.J. Brown, and they could do it well enough. I think Juju Smith is enough of a beast in his own right to be a successful pass catcher, even with Tannehill throwing the ball. And I think Tannehill still is young. He can use his legs a bit and stuff. I think it's a good enough system. They just need to work on it to make it so that Derrick Henry isn't facing goal line defenses on the opposing 40-yard line. Other than that, I think that the big reason they lost this game is that what they did would have been good enough against any team other than the Kansas City Chiefs. The Kansas City Chiefs are just too great offensively to fail right now. They're just so hot, and nothing can really stop them. Mahomes is the ringleader of that. He's an absolute freak of nature. We saw that on his touchdown run where he broke like 5 tackles and looked like a monster among men. I say that phrase a lot. I apologize. I think he's truly a new breed of passer. They are constantly analyzing his eye movements and how he passes the ball and all that, and he's doing things that we've never seen before. A lot of it, I think he's been very fortunate with some things. His no-look pass and all that, I think, does have a little bit to do with skill. I think a lot of it has to do with the pieces he has around him. I think that his system helps a lot. The Andy Reid system is truly magnificent for Mahomes and the team, but in his own right, I think Mahomes would be a huge success on any given team. He's just that great. His only potential downfall that I believe could come eventually is his ego. We haven't seen a ton of it. He seems like a very nice guy, very good guy. But I get these flashes every once in a while, like on his touchdown run, huge touchdown run, he deserves to celebrate. He wanted to be the center of attention on that run, and I think a lot of his runs come from him looking around and saying, forget it, I'll do it myself, and running the ball, and it works right now. But that might not work in 5 years or even next year if the teams figure him out more and all that. He needs to rely on the pieces around him a little bit more. Overall, you can't say much. They're going to the Super Bowl, and I think they're going to win the Super Bowl. I think the team is, in fact, fantastic. But Mahomes, if I had to find something I think worries me about him or the team in general, is that I could see Mahomes becoming somewhat of a diva, saying, I'll do everything myself, I'll run it myself, I'll make these crazy passes myself. the receivers just need to go deep on every single play, because you could see that that's exactly what Bonner. He was getting frustrated at points because he's like, oh, Hill should have just ran it deep. Hardman should have just ran it deep. Instead of breaking inside on these runs, just go to the end zone and I'll air it out to you. That's what he wanted, and that's not the best game plan. Eventually, the defense will figure that out. And the coach knows that. Andy Reid clearly knows that. I don't think Mahomes has enough experience to recognize that he can't just bomb it deep on every play. But that's all being very, very nitpicky. I think he's a fantastic quarterback, and I think he's still the future of this league. Running game stood out to me a little bit in this game, even though it stood out to me because nothing flashy happened. Damian Williams continues to prove that he's an efficient runner, and that's good enough, but that's all he is. He is good enough for this system. I think Andy Reid has made him more of a success than he would be anywhere else in the league. One thing that's shocking to me is when I came into the season, I thought Darwin Thompson could be a huge piece to this team. I think he could have been a complement to Damian Williams, and maybe just he didn't get the proper development behind the other pieces on the team. But he doesn't look good. He doesn't look like he understands the game as much as he should. He's running plays improperly. He's not hitting holes right. He just doesn't look like he understands the game yet, and it's largely due, I'm sure, to him being young. I think in a couple years he could be a good piece for the team. But right now, he just looks rough around the edges, and that's something that if anyone could clean up, it's Andy Reid. Wrapping up the Chiefs team, their aerial weapons, all of them looked fantastic all the time. This was a game where Watkins stepped up, one of his few games. We haven't seen it since week 1 that he scored a touchdown. He had a big game, largely on a big pass, a broken play by the defense on the other side. But in any case, there were times where I saw Robinson going out there making a play, and I'm like, oh, who's that, Calvin Johnson? No, it was Robinson. So I think all the players with Mahomes throwing the ball and stuff and the system they're in have the potential to ignite a game, especially since they have two of arguably the most athletic talents at receiver with Hill and Kelsey on their team. Not to mention Hardman's a complete burner. I think they just have a lot of good pieces around them. And their defense is elite. I'm not going to get into it a ton because I don't know enough about defense, but I still believe their defense is one of the elite defenses, and they still haven't gotten the credit as such, but this game might prove more since they stopped the most unstoppable running back in the past few weeks. Getting into the Packers game, Packers-Niners game, Packers lost 20-37. And it's really not even as close as that appears because this game was over definitely by halftime. There was just the real dagger for the Packers, I believe, was the interception that Rodgers threw to, I believe his name is Emmanuel Mosley. That play was the absolute dagger, and I'm not blaming Rodgers for that throw. I think it was very much just a good defensive play, good awareness, that kind of thing. Maybe he was underthrown a little. Maybe the route was running correctly, something like that. I don't know enough about things like that to say for certain. But that was the play that changed the game. At that point, when he threw that interception and they ran the ball for Mostert's third touchdown, which I'm going to get into in a second, the game was over, and I could see it in Rodgers that he just didn't have that fire in him for the rest of the game. And I've seen that a lot throughout the season, that he's just frustrated or upset or something's going on with Aaron Rodgers, and he just isn't playing like Aaron Rodgers. And maybe it has to do with him recognizing his age is just starting to catch up with him. Even though he's not that old, I think he's just starting to see the signs of decline, and he's really getting upset about it. We saw a similar thing with Brady the past couple of years, that his age is catching up and he doesn't want to admit it. Overall, I've been saying it for a while. The Packers looked average. They looked average in this game, and average wasn't good enough if you want to get to the Super Bowl. The wide receiver weapons, aside from Devontae Adams, were absolutely non-existent. They have been non-existent all year. The fact that Allen Lazard, I'm pretty sure, is probably their second best pass catcher is absolutely pathetic, especially with all the pieces they have with MVS and the guy with the long name that I'm forgetting the name on. But you all know what I'm saying. It's just they have little pieces, but they need another big piece. They need a complement to Adams. They need a big receiver out of this draft. That's what they need. And there's plenty of receivers in this draft that they could go grab that will do great on this team. The defense is awful. I'm not going to even get into it. I don't know enough about defense to get into it, but it's very obvious the defense is awful. They clearly had no run defense, but I think that's something that could be fixable. I think that even though I just said this draft is a good draft for wide receivers, I think you can get your wide receiver late and he'll be good enough. I think they should be focusing on defense and fixing the rest of the team so that Rodgers can be Rodgers. Their run game is great. Aaron Jones, even with a very few amount of carries, was very efficient. And a big thing on this team is they just need to be reignited. They don't have a spark right now, and they need that spark, and I think that'll hopefully come through coaching. The Mike McCarthy system, there was clearly issues with him and Aaron Rodgers, and I think that now that Rodgers has played a season without like a coach really guiding him, he recognizes a little more that the coaching needs to be there. And I think all the fans know that without a successful coach kind of pushing things along, the Packers can't be the Packers. Moving on to the Niners, like I said, the Mosley interception was what turned things around, but truly the dagger was that Mostert touchdown, his third touchdown of the game off that interception field position. The whole Niners hot hand approach works incredibly. I've never seen this committee be stronger than I've never seen a committee be stronger than the Niners committee is. The fact that literally any running back on their team can step up and have a 100-plus yard game with multiple touchdowns and things like that is ridiculous. And I think it says more about coaching and the team than it does about the players themselves. I think that the players themselves, while being very good, would not be as good on a lesser team. I think that you put any of these players on, say, the New York Giants, where Saquon Barkley has to really grind to hit the yards he gets and all that, I think that none of these players would be able to be as successful on a team like the Giants with not as good an offensive line. But Mostert, I think, is their lead back. I think that they try other things, and I think that at the end of the day, you see weeks like last week where one player gets hot, he has a few good plays, and they say, you know what, we're going with this player, we stick with it, and I think that's fine. Terrible for fantasy football. I would not recommend ever drafting any of these running backs in fantasy football, but this isn't about fantasy football right now. As a team, I think that Mostert is their best running back, but I think that any of their running backs have the potential to be their best running back any given week. Garoppolo was scripted out of the game, and the way he was scripted out of this game reminds me of a very dramatic version of the most system QB we all know, Tom Brady. And where did Garoppolo come from? The Tom Brady system with Bill Belichick. He was supposed to be the heir apparent of Tom Brady, and he got traded away. That goes into the Belichick conspiracy of him tanking the Patriots on purpose. I'm not going to get into that. Great videos about it on YouTube if you ever want to learn about the Belichick conspiracy of what he's doing to that team. But Garoppolo is in the only system on the planet Earth that he could be a good quarterback in, because he could do games like this where he throws for 6 of 8 with like 77 yards, and that's perfectly fine. That's all he needs to do. And he's also surrounded by wide receiver talents that are good enough to get him to plays he needs to. With Kittle and Deebo Samuel, I think that Sanders and Dante Pettis are still acceptable receivers. Kendrick Bourne, I think, could be a potentially great receiver. There's a lot of depth to that team. The running backs out of the from behind the line can come and make big plays. It's just, I think that Garoppolo is in a perfect team for him. I think he's good enough for this team, but I don't think him being placed anywhere else on any other team would be good enough. He has no ability to run, just like Tom Brady, where he came from, that system. He can't run at all, but he doesn't need to run because they have a whole slew of running backs by committee that could run. And the passing game is good enough that keeps that running back box open. And one of the big things in this game is that the defense reasserted itself. We haven't seen the Niners defense look like the Niners defense that they did at the beginning of the year. They're starting to look like themselves again, and that's going to be the only challenge the Chiefs have to face in the Super Bowl. And ultimately, I don't know if that's going to be enough. I still think the Chiefs are going to win the Super Bowl based on them just being such a high-powered offensive team. But with that being said, I think it's going to be a great Super Bowl in 2 weeks. Not sure if I'm going to do a reaction episode to the Pro Bowl or something like that next week. I'm really not a fan of the Pro Bowl system. So in spite of it, I'll probably not do any kind of reaction next week. But other than that, my future upcoming episode, I'm looking to do something about my civil engineering experience or more about NJIT very soon. And stay tuned for those kind of episodes, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.